Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva
and this is Twisted Listeners, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And this is part two of what is it?
Cheaters.
Murder Cheaters, murdered for cheating.
Yeah,
I'm
specifically
getting
the
lost.
cheaters get murdered.
Yes, I'm getting lost in these because the two topics are kind of similar.
It's true.
Um, so when you posted one of the posts, I was like, wait, I thought like I was looking at the cases and I was like,
Yeah.
I thought this case was from this week and not last week. Anyway, I was confusing myself about these cases.
Relationships, scandals, breakups. It's like, yeah, there's a little overlap.
All the good stuff. Yeah, all that
Yeah.
sweet, sweet shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is part two. We don't have that much to talk about because we spent about 25 minutes right now talking. That was actually a really long time.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just looked at the clock and was like, holy shit, we were like chatting for a while.
Shooting the shit.
Um Shooting the shit. So we don't have that much for you guys because we kind of
Yeah.
just did it. I was telling Diva that I ate some expired ramen noodles by
Mm.
accident. And I could taste that they were expired, but I still ate like 4 or 5 bites
That's
before I
so
was.
wild that even expires. I feel like they're good in the apocalypse, Like,
Well, you know what it is? The wheat starts to taste old because they're wheat noodles,
mm,
and you can taste that like the wheat is kind of old. Um, and that's what I was tasting, and I was still too lazy to get up, so I ate like a decent amount of it. So I hope I don't vomit.
okay.
Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah,
What I
that
love to do is a gourmet ramen, like just take the noodles, but then throughout the packet, and I make like curry broth and like, gussy it up.
those noodles are fucking delicious. We like
Yeah,
so our Ollie, my kid, is like obsessed with them. So we mix like veggies and eggs into it.
yeah. I've done
Um,
that a bunch.
yeah, it's still way too much salt, but we let him have like one a week, not too much. Try to keep it healthy otherwise, but it's like his little like, you know, his
But
like
if you
fun
ditch the
dinner.
packet and make your own broth, it's like the noodles aren't that bad. They're just
No, no,
noodles.
no. The packet is insane. But yeah, you can
Yeah,
do it without. Like you can even just use like a bouillon or even like
yeah.
adobo seasoning. Like there's all
I like
sorts of
Thai
things
curry
you can
paste
do.
and coconut milk and ginger. It's the
Yeah.
best broth ever.
The noodles are so good. They're so easy and quick to cook and they're like perfect. I know, I love them.
Hmm.
So,
They're great.
yeah. But I had some too. He inspired me, so I had some and first I started with like an adult like spicy
Mm.
one and that was the expired one. So then I just went for good old top ramen. So, it was delicious. Go with the
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am excited for these cases.
Me too.
Mine tonight is like so fucking stupid and weird and like I'm excited to tell you. And I know
Yeah.
you just said that you're excited to tell me yours.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
guys, there's a new Patreon out. Diva did the Candyman Dean Coral. It was horrifying. If you'd like to join us, it's $1 a month. I am working on a case as well. I'm not going to say what it is, but Diva and I will either record it together or I'll do it solo just in the interest of time. But
Hmm.
either way, there will be more consistent Patreon content. Please like, rate, review, follow us on Instagram. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see I always post like the bad reviews that we get, which are pretty few and far between, but they're always so fucking stupid and like
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing. So I like to post them because I find it funny. Um, all that being said, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I'm excited to kick off with this. And at first I was like, oh, I had this one of those cases where it looked like it was a little like tiny one-off, like small news story. And then as I went further and further, I was like, oh no, this is very juicy. Um,
Awesome. I love when
it's
that happens and you're
substantial.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, how am I gonna get this to like
Yeah.
be enough? And then you're like, oh, never mind. There's so much.
This is insane. Yeah. It also helps when like the entire trial's on YouTube, which I did
Yeah.
my other case, I think was the
Oh, you
same
said
thing.
that
But like,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. Like I don't watch the whole thing, but I would if I had more free time
Right.
to watch TV, which I
Hmm.
aspire to have again in the future.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, I got a 3 a.m. date with Drag Race tonight. I'm so excited. My TV time is very, very limited.
I love
Okay.
that you're like, when you're gonna have to wake up and you're just
Hmm.
like drag race.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Okay, so this is the batshit insane case of Armando and Brittany Barron,
Okay.
and this happened in September, I think, 2020.
Oh,
So yeah, back remember that time?
yeah, I didn't think
Yeah.
people were allowed to leave their houses. How are they having affairs?
People are still doing that.
Mhm.
Armando is 32 at this time. We don't know a ton about the background of this couple, Brittany, who's like the
Okay.
same age, Armando and Brittany, but we do know that he subjected Brittany regularly to quote unquote extreme abuse. So I think that's a
Ugh.
good way to kick off because Armando is a piece of shit like uh, all the time. That's just he's extremely abusive. He has a very shitty like man bun top knot, so keep that in mind.
Ew.
Um, yeah, like a guy who shouldn't have that, who's trying to rock it, kind of vibe.
Yeah, like the embarrassing,
Yeah,
like just nah.
it's
Okay.
embarrassing. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm looking him up.
Um,
Ew. The top
yeah.
knot is really bad.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Painting a
Mm,
picture.
yeah,
A
don't love it.
week before, and unfortunately, they also have three daughters, which
Oh, rough.
sucks,
Yeah.
including one who was just under 2 years old at this time because she was born in 2018. So
Oh,
that's really fucking rough.
yeah, that sucks a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Um, So a week before these events, I guess we'll say, Brittany told Armando that she wanted a divorce because of all the, fucking abuse.
Yeah,
And in response, he slapped her and choked her until she was unconscious. So subjected her to more extreme abuse. And this is
Jesus.
why I wanted to know. People ask why women don't just like leave, and it's like, this because they're afraid.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it because of this.
yeah.
Um, so in the week after she announced kind of to Armando that she did want to get divorced despite his, abusive retaliation, she did begin also the very early stages of a relationship with a coworker named Jonathan Amaralt. Emerald.
Emerald.
Um,
Okay.
Later at trial, she would describe their relationship, which, like I said, was very, very early. They had not gotten serious, had developed after they started on a project together at their job, and they'd just been texting and getting to know each other. They'd only hung out one time at a local park, which I think is like a cute COVID way to hang out and have a date, right? You're like, oh, we're outside.
Yeah. So she's moving on. Whether or not he's allowing her to actually physically leave, she is done. She is
Yes.
moving on. Okay.
Yes. And so there is this clean break for her, but like honestly, even if she full on cheated on this guy, like I don't think anyone could really be mad. Um,
Right.
uh, yeah. At the park, she said they did share like a kiss, but it didn't get very serious. She said that she told him they could probably only be friends. That it's not like it may not have even been going anywhere. And she said she wasn't planning at that time on being in a serious relationship with him. She was just getting to know him, essentially.
Right. But it's an
Yeah.
emotional affair, which like I don't care at all. But like it
Right, but
was
she had also said, "I'm getting a divorce from you." So to her, it was a clean break in her mind of like, this isn't really cheating,
right.
because she had like made the announcement. Um,
Right. She's like, I
so there
told
is that.
you. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, and she's taking things slow, I think too. Or she just doesn't want to like come out like, "Here's my boyfriend," like like right away. Even if she
Right.
did ultimately want to get serious, she knows she can't like go that fast.
Right.
Um, so that's what's happening with her and Jonathan. And by all accounts, Jonathan was a really sweet guy. I saw one couple news stories call him like lonely. I don't know what that exactly means, but clearly he's like looking for someone.
Yeah, he's looking
Um,
for love
yeah,
in all the
um,
wrong places, as it were.
yeah. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
so on the night of I think September something or other, missed a key piece of information. No one cares what the date was.
No, September.
September something. Armando discovered, apparently, I'm sure through going through her phone, that Brittany had been texting with Jonathan, like I said.
Mhm.
And we can imagine how this motherfucker responds to that.
Yeah.
Um, he began to savagely beat Brittany, giving her two really horrendous black eyes in the process.
Mhm.
He puts a gun in her mouth. He threatens her repeatedly, saying stuff like, quote, you're going to die tonight, right?
Jesus.
So 0 to 1,000 here.
Right.
He then took her cell phone and used it to pretend to be her and text Jonathan to arrange another meetup at a park. Um,
Mm.
and Jonathan's like, okay, right?
Right.
Um, and there he he takes Brittany with, and they go meet up with Jonathan with this fake meetup. When he ambushes Jonathan, Armando severely beats him and stomps him.
Dude, what the
Um,
fuck?
it gets so much worse right now. Like, this story's so fucking wild. He then proceeded to torture Jonathan and try to force Brittany to torture him as well. Um,
What the fuck?
he literally put his gun in her hand, and tried to get her to shoot him, but she wouldn't pull the trigger. He forced her to step on his neck,
What
but
the
she
fuck?
doesn't like put her weight on it. She's trying to like not do that.
Not do it. Right.
He forces her to cut Jonathan's wrists, at one point. Um,
Jesus.
Finally, Armando Barron forces Jonathan to get into, I believe, the trunk of his own car, before he shot him and killed him.
Fuck, dude.
But first, before he killed him, he fucked with him, saying, quote, I'm going to let you live. And then points the gun at him. And Jonathan apparently said, wait, I thought you were going to let me live. And then Armando said, quote, I guess that makes both of us liars.
Oh, what a fucking
Which this
dweeb.
guy thinks he's like a cool guy in a movie. And it's like, actually, no, you're an abusive fucking little dickbag. Like,
First of all, there were no cameras on you. Second, that's a fucking stupid thing to say.
yes.
Also, he didn't lie about anything. Like, he doesn't even know you. He doesn't fucking owe you shit. Like,
No,
what the fuck? The
no, it's
fuck?
not. It's not like Jonathan was like the best friend and like had been lying about this, or it's not like there had
Yeah.
been any element of betrayal. Like, yeah, like you said, they don't know each other at all.
It's a very, like,
Um,
what was that show where the cop always has the really terrible tagline?
oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
like Law and Order or something.
It's like an NY something. Anyway, it reminds
Yeah,
me of that where it's like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, what you just said
yeah,
is not even, that's not even a thing. So
yeah.
stupid.
So after the murder here, thing we thought we were done, but things get so much more insane.
Awesome.
Um, After he kills Jonathan, he forces Brittany to drive Jonathan's car with his body in it, in tandem with him,
Mm.
driving their car. So he's driving
Mhm.
behind her the whole time. He's got her talking on the phone to him, and they drive this way, to a remote campsite area, near the border with New Hampshire. For some reason, I didn't get the location of where we are either, but I think it's New Hampshire.
Mhm. That's what I saw when I looked up his stupid
Yeah,
fucking face.
it's right near the border with Massachusetts. That's what it is. Yeah, we're in New Hampshire.
Okay. Okay.
So they drive quite a ways, about 200 miles north, and at this remote kind of campsite area,
Mhm.
Jonathan forced Brittany to decapitate Jonathan's body.
That's fucking insane.
Yes,
That's fucking insane.
yes.
Oh my god.
Using a saw and then a knife when the saw wouldn't work. And yeah, so that's what I kind of first clicked on this story with, when I just saw like, man, force his wife to decapitate like, lover's body or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna click on that. Like, I'm interested, like,
Yeah.
what's the story
What the
behind
fuck?
that? So that's kind of the headline, obviously. And then as I dug more into it, I'm like, oh, this is insane. But like, that is so fucking wild. Um, yeah. Uh, they then spend some time destroying evidence. He makes Brittany do as well, like his wallet, Jonathan's wallet, and his stuff. And after some time, Armando just pieces, and he leaves Brittany with the vague instructions to just get rid of the body somehow. And so fucking poor Brittany is just like, okay. So she's sort of like staying there with the body, like pseudo camping. I don't know to what extent he left her with like anything with which to camp, or if she's just fucking sitting there.
It's bold of
But
him to think that she's just gonna, like, he can just leave and she'll continue to, like,
yeah,
obey him.
yes, yeah. So he thinks he has total control over her, because he has
Nice.
successfully forced her under threat of violence to do whatever he wants to up to this point.
Mhm.
So now, yeah, exactly. Now he has this authority that like, oh, I leave, she's still going to do what I say.
Mhm.
Um, so basically nearby campers, I think later that night, whose site she was kind of infringing on, call the authorities, because they're like, hey, this lady's at our campsite. What's up with that?
Yeah.
And officers with the Fish and Game Department approach Brittany and are like, hey, what's up? What are you doing here? And she said she got in a fight with a friend of hers and she was just there clearing her head. Makes up some nonsense story. But later on, after these same people find Jonathan's body in the creek,
Mhm.
she is arrested and brought in for questioning. Um, Basically, Brittany had tried and failed to bury him, but then she just dragged him kind of haphazardly into a creek. So her efforts are not like fully baked of getting rid of the body.
Yeah.
Um, so she also wiped the car clean and got rid of evidence, which Armando, basically intimidated her to do.
Yeah, into doing. So this is not
Um,
something that she like wants to do, but she's
no,
obviously like a very battered woman.
yeah, and she's also been threatened that she's gonna die, and I'm sure her
Probably like the
daughters are being
kids.
threatened. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's kids at play. So Brittany, basically immediately tells them this insane fucking story. Thankfully, she's not too scared to, not do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thankfully, they take her seriously at face value.
Wow.
It probably helps her case, I think. It's my commentary here that she had two massive, horrendous-looking black eyes.
That's what I was
Um,
just gonna say too. Like that's
One of her
probably
eyes is like
helpful.
bright red, bloodshot. Like it looks like the gnarliest punches have just
Yeah.
been, you know, uh, yeah, she's been very seriously punched. So I think that helps like lend some credence to her being an abused woman because she's like, hello, look at me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So authorities go to arrest Armando, and by the time they catch up with him, he had their eldest daughter, and he was trying to go. I saw flee, but then I also saw going back up to like the burial site because he had his truck loaded up with concrete and soil. So I think he was also trying to go back
Mm,
and like make sure the body was like properly taken care of.
disposed of and
Yeah,
covered. Yeah. Yeah.
but like bringing your daughter along is nice for that.
I mean, it
Um,
sounds par for the course with this motherfucker.
not it's not surprising.
Hmm.
So Armando, in case you didn't hate this piece of shit enough, he pled
Huh.
not guilt. He pled not guilty, of course.
Is he like trying to blame her?
Hmm
Oh, come
He
on.
argued at trial that it was Brittany that shot Jonathan,
Hmm.
and Armando only shot Jonathan separately in self-defense because he was coming at him, and he fired one bullet into his arm.
What a dumb
So
bitch.
he's
Like, how did you end up in that situation in the first place? That you were
hmm
shooting him in self defense. Like, come on.
yes.
Come
Yes, you lured him there under false pretenses. Anyway,
on. Right.
so and this is a very cop maneuver, this thing that Armando's doing, like this is straight out of a cop playbook. He said that he feared for his life because there was a machete on the floor of Armando's car, which I also have questions about that.
It's,
Um,
yeah.
but the prosecution plays out with their version of the murder, the correct one, spoiler alert, in which Armando actually first shot through Jonathan's arm, you know,
Mhm.
to begin with.
Yeah.
Then Jonathan tried to kind of come at him to take away the gun, to disarm him, to defend
Hmm.
himself. Because logically, when you're being shot, you actually do usually try to save yourself and do some kind of maneuver, right? Like you
Yeah,
don't
you're
just
trying
like
to
sit there.
advocate somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, do
Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna
something.
get the gun out of your hand, I'm gonna rush you. Like he was trying to do something.
Hmm. Right.
You don't just go like, oh, boop, 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 okay, shoot me,
Yes, this is it. Like, yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he was shot first, which is key information. Then he comes to defend himself. But it's such a cop thing, a cop twist to be like,
Hmm.
he was coming at me. Well, I was scared. It's like he was coming at you
Yeah.
because you fucking shot him.
Right. Right.
You
It's
know?
fucking ridiculous. It is a very cop thing. I always think about that with cops. Like, I was scared for my
Yeah,
life. Well, maybe do a different job then if you're such a fucking
yeah,
scaredy cat, you know?
yeah.
Like, this is what your
Um,
job is, you know?
yeah.
Anyway.
So the defense, yeah, I was scared. So the defense lawyer, he's such a cop. This guy, he's big cop energy.
Yeah.
Um, the defense lawyer said that Brittany's testimony, that Armando shot the final, kill shot, was at Jonathan's back. He
Mm,
fired it into his back while his head was kind of closer to the door. Um, they testified this is impossible because of various forensic things. It said that the shot had to have been at close range.
mhm.
So they're trying to like fuss around with the angle of the gun and little things like that. And it's like, no, you clearly fucking shot him.
Mhm.
Um, Prosecution said that jurors should also consider the insane position Brittany was put in because she wanted to get her, get back home to her daughters. Like I just said, all this stuff where she's under severe threat, she's scared for her life, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
In closing arguments, the prosecutor said, quote, the defendant had all the motive to kill Jonathan because for him, Jonathan was a man who had just started seeing his wife, a man who his wife thought looked like an Abercrombie model. They're silly. A man
Aw.
who was at her workplace that he now knew was talking to his wife behind his back. The man that he instantly saw as a rival. And again, I'm like, she left him first, to be fair.
And she did, and he wouldn't, just because he wouldn't let her doesn't mean she wasn't doing it, like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. So yeah, it's frustrating.
It is.
Brittany, for her part, pled guilty to 3 counts just of falsifying evidence and got out on parole, which I think is fair. I'm glad she didn't get hit with anything more serious. Certainly, in some places in the country, she would.
It's also ridiculous that she even got that when it's like,
Yeah,
she was
but
clearly being forced.
at least it's like light. At least it's not like the full on murder
Mhm.
charges.
Yeah.
Which again, in other places, she might have been hit with everything, and they wouldn't even have cared.
Yeah.
So thanks, New Hampshire. At
Yeah, I
the
guess.
sentencing, she apologized to Jonathan's family and, clearly felt really bad, even though she was, for her part, coerced. Um,
Right.
and Armando, who the obvious fucking villain of this story, was found guilty on many, many counts, including first-degree murder, second-degree assault, kidnapping, domestic violence for, punching Brittany, absolutely everything. He got a
Yeah.
life sentence plus 45 to 135 years for the other charges. The life sentence was for
Damn.
murder. Yeah, New Hampshire don't play, but they also don't have the death penalty. So
Well,
I
that's
don't
fine.
think. Yeah.
That
Um,
doesn't bother me.
yeah. So at his sentencing in May 2022, Jonathan's mom, both of Jonathan's parents go in really hard on Armando, which is great. And his
Mhm.
mom calls him a quote hideous, demented creature, which is nice.
Yeah, he is. Fuck this guy.
His dad calls him a despicable coward and a wife beater, and he says the great line, quote, you mentioned to John that you have a revolver called the Judge. Now we have another judge here today who will decide your miserable future. Which I thought that was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good.
So they go really hard. I like that. And I like when people aren't like, we forgive you because of Jesus. I like when they're like, fuck you, burn in hell, you fucking asshole. Like, I like when they go that route.
We
That's
forgive
definitely,
you because of Jesus.
yeah, I would go much more this route of like burn in
No,
hell,
yeah,
So
be very me too.
I
Very
like
much.
that. So because he's also a total baby entitled asshole, Armando has said, still, testify that he's innocent despite all of this, and he plans to appeal his conviction.
No, fuck him.
Um,
Appeal all day, you bitch.
but that is the story of that.
Also, it's really sad, but you were like, "Oh, he's an Abercrombie model," and I looked him up, and he was a
I
really,
couldn't
like,
find a picture of him.
good-looking, cute man. Yeah, he's in here. There's quite a few. He's a very good-looking
Oh
young
yeah,
man.
no, no, he is cute. Yeah,
He is. He's really cute, and it's really
yeah,
fucking unfortunate and shitty because, like,
no.
honestly, the other thing is I'm looking at these things, and it's like, woman was forced to behead her lover, and it's like, it sounds like they, like, weren't lovers?
No, not
Really?
quite. No, they were just like starting something that may not even have been anything, but they were just like
Yeah.
exploring, something very early days, and
A little bit of
watching Brit
something, yeah.
watching Brittany, it's probably like scary but exciting for her because she's in this horrible relationship for so long to have someone who's
Right.
like expressing interest and who's a nice guy.
Who's nice to
Um,
her, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, watching Brittany testify is so fucking harrowing too. Like she's really strong and like, but you can only be so strong like talking about this shit. Like
Yeah, this
she's
is
wrecked.
fucking crazy. This is wild as fuck, like,
Yeah,
that this
yeah,
is, like, what happened. Yeah.
yeah,
What a
yeah.
fucking story. Holy shit. Okay, well, mine is not as wild. I don't think that that's gonna be possible to find a story that wild, but it's close. There's definitely some weirdness to it. I'm gonna talk about the case of the murder of Keith Reed, otherwise known as the story of Mary Taglianetti,
Oh
which it
yeah.
really bothers me that they call her Taglianetti because it should be like Taglianetti because it's
Mm.
Italian.
Ta-
Whatever.
like the pasta is tagliatelle, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's different, but like my mom's last
Tagliatelle.
name is Stramalia and everybody calls her Stramaglia.
Oh, yeah,
but the
I guess sometimes the
GL
G is
sound.
hard in with Italians, though, it depends.
It's true, and it might be here, but it just it threw me for a loop, and I was like, maybe it's because 'cause we're in America, I don't know. But in any case, this story takes place in 2012. Well, it actually starts in, like, 2010 in upstate New York.
Okay.
But really, it starts even farther back than that. Back when Mary Taglianetti married her husband, Anthony Rob Taglianetti, when the two were still young and idealistic, we'll say. The couple lived in Virginia, where Rob worked at the Marine Museum in Quantico after his tour as a Marine. So you don't say like retired from the Marines, I guess, but like he was
Mhm.
no longer in active duty. So
Okay.
he started working at the Marine Museum and they raised their daughters in Virginia. But after some time, around 11 years of marriage, the two started to run into a little trouble. Rob here was a fairly violent and angry man, which I know sounds weird for a Marine. Um, I actually have a lot of friends that are Marines, and they're mostly just like really heavy drinkers, but like otherwise like pretty
Mm,
cool dudes. But so
okay.
that's maybe not fair. But Rob was a violent and angry man, and eventually Mary had enough. She'd had enough of him, so she left Rob. She went with their two daughters to live in with her parents in Albany, New York. So this is in the summer of 2010. And in August of that same year, Mary decides to open a Match.com account because apparently she did not like being alone. They had been split up for like a couple of months and she starts dating, which, you know, fair, do
Yeah.
what you want, live your life, but she's not even close to divorced.
But some
So
people just
anyway,
cannot, like, you
be
know.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a thing for a lot of people. But in any case, she meets 51-year-old Keith Reed, a superintendent for a local school district, and the two hit it off right away. They end up going on one date in late August, and things got very sexy before the night was through. Just to
Not a
to
little
say
bit.
to
Very
say that
sexy.
got
Okay.
very sexy. Then in September, Mary and Rob reconcile, and she moves back to Virginia just like that. She's like, "Thanks for the sex. Thanks for the sex, Keith.
Alright. Yeah.
I'm out. I'm going
Yeah.
back to Virginia." Now, as far as I know, Rob had no idea about this little Match.com affair. And it's a good thing because, as I said, he was a violent dude and he was known for being very irrational, even with his coworkers saying that they feared him and found him to have a volatile personality.
Okay.
So she probably hid this from him with good reason. So, anyway, things seemed to go back to normal, at least for a while. Then, out of nowhere, Keith, who's minding his own business, living his life in upstate New York, gets an email from Mary. It's been 2 years, so now we're in 2012. And Mary again says she's either separated from or will soon be separated from her husband. And she wants to reconnect. As far as I can tell, like Keith is a pretty stand-up guy. He's been divorced for a few years. He's super close with his three daughters, one of
Mhm.
whom he'd recently walked down the aisle at her wedding. But I think he figures, he and Mary had hit it off. She's about to be single, or she may already be, as far as what she's telling him. So, there's no reason for him to not pursue this, right?
Yeah.
Because as far as he knows, like her relationship is over. So the two start emailing, and those emails get sexy. Again, we're back at the sexy,
A
sexy
steamy
times.
email. Wow.
Steamy emails, yes, we love a steamy email.
That's amazing.
And yeah, and then they take it to the phone and they have a little sexy time on the phone. So little
My
phone
gosh.
calls here.
Every form of communication is getting steamed up.
It's getting steamy. It's very hot, very hot.
Yeah.
And beyond these sexy calls, they're just talking like every day. They're just in a lot. They're really hitting it off. They're really seeming to each other. Then in September 2012, Mary, oh, sorry, Keith opens his email to find a threatening email from Mary's account, but definitely not from Mary. Instead, it's from Rob, her current husband, with whom she still lives, which, from what I can tell, Keith did not know. Like I said, he thinks that she's in some part of breaking up. And from what I can tell, it seems like he thinks she's kind of towards the end of the process, right? So who knows what Mary is telling Keith? But anyway, he gets this email from Rob basically being like, stop talking to my wife or I'll expose your nasty emails to your work. I'm going to get you in trouble. Like, I'm serious. You'll regret it, whatever. Keith is seemingly pretty appalled at the situation and decides, I don't need this in my life. So he writes back to Mary's email, but to Rob, essentially. He says, never contact or threaten me again. And he tells Rob to tell his wife the same. So he basically like immediately washes his hands of Mary and Rob, and he's like, fuck y'all. So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
not stoked that Mary involved him in this shit, right? So, as for how Rob found out, Mary had accidentally left her emails open on their shared computer. And after finding the email, Rob made Mary share all of her passwords with him and made
Mm,
her exchange cell phones with him so he could monitor who was calling and texting her throughout the day.
if you have to do this, just leave.
Fucking break
Why
up.
are you still doing this? I mean, like I've been there, but if you are checking someone's phone, you just don't be with them. Like if you feel the need to, you know?
Yeah. My next two sentences are fucking psycho shit. Just
Yeah,
break up.
just
Because
break
it
up.
is.
Yeah.
Just break up. If that's how bad it is, like there's no coming back from that. You're never going to have a good relationship with that person.
No.
So, from here, it gets a little murky, but in many reports, it said that Keith and Mary stopped talking at this point. But I've also read that Mary created a new email and that they did, in fact, keep talking. So, I don't really know. It sounds to me like Mary's going to do what she wants to do and that she may have some sort of way of kind of manipulating Keith.
Yeah.
Obviously, she had no problem lying to him about the state of her relationship when she decided to reach out to him again. So it's pretty inconsiderate of her, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Rob is definitely still contacting Keith. Whether or not Mary is, Rob is. He's pissed that Keith basically was like, I don't give a fuck about you or your wife, because he feels like this guy ruined his life, was fucking his wife, stepped on his toes, whatever the whole fucking thing. And Keith is basically like, fuck off, dude. You're in Virginia. I'm in New York. I don't give a shit about you. But Rob does not like being brushed off. So he keeps sending threatening emails to Keith, at one point sending him his own address, which
Mm.
Rob somehow found online and is never
Oh yeah.
availing.
It's not when you don't want people to have that. Yeah.
No. So now it's escalating. And again, as far as I know, these emails were kind of a one-way conversation, but I think Rob became like fixated on this. So, like I said, Keith has basically washed his hands of these nut jobs. But Rob confronts Mary again, and the two get into a pretty bad fight about this, relationship or whatever. Rob takes off in his car and straight up tells Mary he's going to go confront Keith. And to be clear, Keith lives 350 miles away. So he's not
Okay.
like driving down the street, right?
Right.
So this is crazy. But what's even more ridiculous is that Mary does not bother to warn Keith. She doesn't call him, she doesn't email him. She just is kind of like, "Well, it's out of my hands," Like, "What can
Yeah.
I do?" And it's like, you can have a fucking phone sex call with him, but you can't call him to be like, "My husband's driving out there." Like, come on,
Yeah, dude, give him a heads up.
Ridiculous. So when Rob arrives the next day, he goes directly to Keith's place of work under the guise of looking for a job as a substitute teacher. He asks for Keith by name, but that makes sense. He's the superintendent and works at one of the local schools, so it makes sense that they would, know who he was. When Rob is told Keith is out at a meeting, he leaves without making any sort of scene. Later on, cameras outside Keith's house capture a man removing the outside security bulbs from Keith's security lights. And a few hours after that, while Keith is home packing for a work trip going out of town, there comes a knock on the door. When Keith answers it, having no idea who it might be, because again, thanks, Mary, he finds Rob outside the door. Now, the following day, September 23rd, 2012, Rob returns home to Mary, who is terrified of what may happen, but again, did nothing to prevent it. He tells Mary that Keith was out of town, so he just drove back. Mary notices a large bruise on Rob's head, but he said it's from bumping his head on a light at his friend's house. So maybe
Okay.
he hit it on a light at Keith's house while he was taking the bulbs out, or maybe Keith punched him. We don't know.
Yeah.
What we do know is that the following day, Rob disappears, taking a few days off of
Mm.
work, and
Mhm.
telling Mary via a note that he's going camping to clear his head. 2 days later, he returns home, tells Mary he quit his job, which he did, and again leaves, this time apparently not planning to come back. People at his work said he came in disheveled and quit, or said he was taking an extended leave, but either way, they said he was acting really strange, and a lot of people noticed. Now, once Rob disappears for the second time, Mary gets a little concerned, which, like, fucking duh,
Yeah.
and she decides to Google Keith's name just because she thinks maybe something went wrong. When
Mm.
she Googles him, she finds out that the day after Rob paid Keith a visit, he didn't turn up at work. He also didn't end up going on his work trip, and his daughters can't even get in touch with him. And like I said, he's
Mm.
very, very close with them.
Yeah.
W- One of his coworkers came by his house and found his door locked. Found his dog locked in the garage. And when
Mm.
police started interviewing neighbors, many said that they had heard gunshots the night before he disappeared. Pretty soon after that, his body was found in some bushes on his property about 150 feet from his front door.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he'd been shot 3 times before being dragged into the bushes in a really half assed attempt to hide his body. This, of course, made the news, and Mary reads about it and immediately calls the police and tells them she is sure her husband is responsible. Also, just to sort of, back up her story, Rob, the genius here, dropped an ATM receipt near Keith's body, and it has his name and card information on it. So, like, good job covering your tracks. So, as her story unfolded, police also became sure that it was Rob who killed Keith, and a manhunt began and ended shortly thereafter when he was found still in Virginia with his car full of camping and survival gear parked just outside of a national park. Now, this is interesting. He had also booked a one-way ticket to Israel, which, like,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
weird choice. They have extradition back to the US. So, like,
Oh, okay. So
I don't know
also
what
a
he was
dumb
doing.
choice.
A
Besides like
very
the
dumb
other
choice.
thoughts that we might have about Israel right now.
Yes, right, exactly. So anyway, that I just found that like an interesting aside. He was arrested, Mary was interviewed, and I have to tell you, like, she seemed kind of stoked to be rid of him.
Yeah.
She was saying, like, I'm sure he's guilty. I'm glad where he is. He is where he is. He's where he belongs.
Oh my
You know.
gosh. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, but also this is kind of on you, like, a lot. Like, you did a lot of this. And part of me feels almost like it's intentional for her, like she used Keith to get away from Rob. Like, I don't
Mm.
I don't know that she took it as far as, like, knowing that Rob would, like, kill Keith, but
Right.
I don't think she really cared either. I think, like, she was only looking out for herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Rob went to trial. His defense used kind of what I just said as their main defensive strategy. Basically, it was Mary manipulating him by letting him find the emails, hoping maybe not that he would kill Keith, but maybe even the other way around, like Keith would kill him. They went as far as to say that since the threatening emails were sent from her email address, that she was the one to send them to cause like more discord between the two men. Like she was trying
So
to
she
set this
is
whole thing up.
kind of enjoying the drama. She probably did not want
Yes.
obviously it to result in murder, but she does like some drama.
She has like a pretty blatant disregard for Keith and Rob,
She likes the some
really.
drama for sure.
Yeah. Like it's all about like her and what she wants and
Yeah.
right. So I don't love that. Um you know, it's an interesting tactic to say, like, because there's no way to know that she wasn't sending those emails.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing to try to do. But regardless, none of this really matters since Rob was the one to pull the trigger completely on his own. And like
Yeah.
they can prove he was there. They can prove she wasn't. Like, all of the people that work with Keith were like, yes, that man Rob was here that day looking for him, you know. So there's a paper trail, there's an ATM receipt, there's gunshots that match like a gun that he has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so regardless of whether or not she like drove him to do it or whatever, he did it. He drove 350 miles without her there and decided to do this. So in any case, the jury agreed with me. They found Rob guilty of second degree murder, which is weird because again, he took a gun, drove 350 miles, searched for this guy all day, finally found him at night, and then shot and killed him. And they gave him second degree,
That
which
yeah, there's I'm hearing a lot of premeditation.
I'm hearing a lot of premeditation, right? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. There's a lot of premeditation here. Um, But regardless, he was given 25 years to life in prison, and he's about 10 years in at this point.
Okay.
So I think his first eligibility for parole would be like 2028 or something like that, a little sooner than the full 25. I think they might have like good behavior laws.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the story. Who fucking cares what Mary's up to? She sucks. But this
Yeah.
poor 51-year-old man just looking for love who really did nothing wrong. He was getting lied to by Mary the whole fucking time
That
and
sucks.
ended up getting fucking killed for it. And it just,
Yeah, he
you
just had, like,
know,
a steamy affair, and that's all he thought it was, and then surprise.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
fact that, like, it was so over in his head, he's like, "I would like neither you nor your wife to ever contact me again." Like,
Yeah.
for Rob, like, that should be enough. Like, I told this guy to fuck off. He was like, "I will gladly fuck off."
Yeah. Watch me
Like,
fuck off,
why
goodbye. Like,
yeah, like,
yeah.
why would you fucking drive 350
It's
miles
so
to murder
dumb.
him when he's, like,
It's so
more than
dumb.
willing to never talk to either of you again? Yeah, it's very dumb.
Yeah.
Uh Both of these were just ridiculous. Fucking macho dudes with like anger issues needing to prove some fucking point. I hope they're enjoying like their righteousness while they sit in fucking prison. So,
Yeah. Seriously.
idiots, idiots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, a
Uh
lot of dumb guys, and I really actually this whole week, sorry if I moved my mic, that was terrible.
it's fine.
Um, in this whole, like, week, I actually did not feel like, I didn't feel, like, bad for any of the people being cheated on, and I actually felt sympathy for all of the cheaters.
I kind of did too, which is like
Yeah.
really I
I
think they
wasn't
did
like, "Oh, how dare you cheat." It was, like, usually the people being cheated on were, like, abusive and shitty, so I was kinda like, "Okay."
yeah, and like cheating is terrible. Like you shouldn't do it at the age I'm at. Like I would just never at this point, like
Yeah.
in my life, and like of like whatever level of maturity I have reached. It's certainly the one where it's like if I don't want to be with somebody, I'm just gonna not be with them. I'm not gonna like
Right.
blow my whole fucking life up.
Yeah.
But I don't think I feel like people put such a heavy weight on cheating. Like
Mhm.
if you cheat, like you deserve to die, and it's like, dude, we don't even kill
No.
people for killing people like all of the
No,
time. You're
yeah.
we're gonna execute people for cheating. Like, I feel like it's this big fucking thing, and it's like there's so many different, you know, there's so much context that you need. There's so many different situations where it's not as cut and dry as I think people want to pretend it is. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think these cases are, a good illustration of that. But anyway, moving on to next week.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Well, I've had this one, as you know, for like a couple of weeks. It popped in my
Mm,
head. So what I've been doing so I don't forget is the second I think of them, I just email it to you or message it to you.
yeah.
So speaking of context, there's no context. I'll just send Diva like murdered by a shoe or whatever, which actually would be
Ooh,
hilarious.
yeah,
Um, and then
sure.
sh and then basically it's just holding me accountable so I don't fucking forget it because I have
Right,
definitely come up with really great ideas and
and you
then
forgot
completely
it.
forgot
Yeah,
them. Like, I don't know if I ever remembered.
yeah.
Anyway, all of that is to say that the topic for next week is gonna be people who were found guilty of murder without there being a body.
No body. Okay,
No body, no problem.
let's
We're
do it.
still gonna we're still gonna convict you. There
Yeah,
was a point in time where you could not be found guilty of murder if there wasn't a body. So that's a really interesting kind of change in our justice system where we have been successfully putting people behind bars for murder even when we don't have a body to prove that murder. So yeah.
that is interesting.
Yeah, I thought it'd be an interesting topic and maybe some good cases, probably some weird ass places that bodies might be since we
Yeah,
don't have them. Yeah. So that's
very
that's
cool.
my topic.
Some bodies to
Yeah.
keep your eyes peeled out, looking for.
Mhm.
It's always
Yeah.
kinda spooky when they're, like, still out there. I think about Susan Powell a lot, and, like, that fucking mine
Yeah.
shaft, like,
Yes.
so fucked up.
Yeah. There's a lot of things where I'm like, am I standing on a body right now? Is there a body beneath the house?
Mhm.
Like, you know,
I mean, probably actually when you think
chances
about,
are, yeah.
actually when it comes to California mission history,
Mhm.
if you live actually within like 10 miles of a mission, you're probably on a graveyard.
On a
Yeah.
graveyard, yeah. And I mean, just who
Yes.
knows how things migrate once they're underground, but
Yeah, yeah.
in any case. So that's gonna be our topic. Thanks everybody. I like can't even talk. Thanks everybody for listening. Please do continue to like, rate, and review so that you can help us, defeat all the Julies out there who don't like the sound of our voice.
Yes.
Uh what a dick. Um and yeah, follow us on Instagram so you can see stories like this when I call out these love letters that we get.
Mhm.
And keep an eye out for new Patreons as well. And I guess that's all I have to say. So until next week,
Stay.
off our
Yes.
West. Shout
Ciao.
out. Bye.
Ciao.